I thought that Republicans couldn't possibly get any more extreme after Sarah Palin in 2008, which was the first time that I was old enough to vote. Then Trump came along. And then I thought to myself, all right, this has got to be the floor, right? You can't possibly get more fringe than this, right? Well, of course you can, because Trump won, and he not only normalized extremism within the Republican Party and across the country, he laid the foundation so people even more fringe than him can become politically viable. See Exhibit A.
Can you tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself? He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you fuck off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank you very much.
So in retrospect, Sarah Palin doesn't seem as extreme compared to the Jewish space laser lady. The question is, how long until we look back at this moment and ask ourselves, hey, remember when we all thought that Marjorie Taylor Greene was the worst the Republican Party could get? Well, that moment is now, my friends, because the next iteration of the Republican lunatic is here to push the Overton window even further to the right. And this individual is so unhinged that he actually does make Marjorie Taylor Greene look somewhat reasonable by comparison. I'm, of course, talking about Mark Robinson, North Carolina's lieutenant governor who just won his state's GOP nomination for governor. And, of course, he is a proud Christian nationalist who wants Christian patriots to own and rule this nation. But don't take it from me.
The Christian patriots of this nation will own this nation and rule this nation.
Counterpoint, we're not a Christian nation. Our Constitution is secular. Therefore, to actually turn America into a Christian nation, you would have to do regime change, literally. But it seems like a lot of Republicans are actually willing to do that. But what if those of us who are already here just don't want to live in a Christian nation? What if we're atheists? What if we don't believe in your religion? Well, he has a message for you.
As for this not being a Christian nation, yes it is. If you don't like it, I'll buy your plane, train, or automobile ticket right up out of here.
That's nice. Now, he described himself as more of a preacher than a politician and believes that he has divine authority to crush his political opponents by all means necessary. And he's publicly stated that he's willing to lay down his own life to defeat the enemy.
And tell our enemies on the other side of the aisle that would drag this nation down into a socialist hellhole that you will only do it as you run past me, laying on the ground, choking on my own blood.
Now, that rhetoric might seem a bit Hitlerian, sure, but that doesn't necessarily indicate his willingness to crush the enemy violently per se. That's a fair point to make. But here he is explicitly endorsing an armed rebellion against the United States government.
We're facing a federal government that, let's face it, is tyrannical.
Oh, yeah.
It is tyrannical. Guys, this is the type of government the Second Amendment was made for.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you'll also be entirely unsurprised to learn that he is a supporter of the January 6th insurrection and calls the people who were arrested political prisoners. So this is somebody who talks openly about domination and the use of violence, and this all sounds pretty Hitlerian, but it's not like he's explicitly quoted or invoked Hitler, right? Well, in a 2014 Facebook post, Mark Robinson shared this quote from Hitler about racial pride, which reads, "Pride in one's own race, and that does not imply contempt for other races, is also a normal and healthy sentiment. I have never regarded the Chinese or the Japanese as being inferior to ourselves. They have the right to be proud of their past, just as we have the right to be proud of the civilization to which we belong." Spoiler alert, it turns out that Hitler actually did believe that whites were the master race. But what if it's the case that he liked that quote and didn't know he was quoting Hitler? Well, he knows it's Hitler because he's defended his use of the quote and hasn't taken it down. But you see, it's not like he's quoting Hitler because he likes Hitler. He's quoting Hitler to educate his followers, that's the excuse, about the dangers of pride more generally speaking. And as he put it just a few months later, he'll accept gay pride when you accept white pride. Okay, that's quite the bargain. You know, I'd like some gay pride, sir. Well, that'll cost you one white pride. Deal. And you're probably thinking that, obviously gay pride and white pride are two entirely different things. So his point doesn't make sense. One stems from the desire for equality and the other hinges on one's false belief that they're superior to everyone and the goal to dominate other races that they believe are inferior. But he doesn't see it that way. In fact, he probably actually thinks that LGBTQ plus people are as dangerous as you and I think Nazis are. And I say this because he also has a history of downplaying the Holocaust and, of course, of anti-Semitism as well, in addition to the Hitler quote. Talking Points memo explains, in 2021, Robinson sparked outrage from Jewish groups when he published a post filled with Yiddish slurs and references to Israeli currency, wherein he declared the Black Panther superhero movie was based on a character that was created by an agnostic Jew and put to film by satanic Marxists in an effort to pull the shekels out of your slur pockets. Those comments that drew attention are not Robinson's only controversial take on Jewish issues. Over the years, Robinson repeatedly questioned why criticism of Nazis was such a prominent part of political discourse. He argued that Nazism was defeated in World War II, while the continued spread of communism was a more pressing problem. In one of these posts, which has not been reported before, Robinson seemed to veer into Holocaust denial. Quote, there is a reason the liberal media fills the airwaves with programs about the Nazi and the 6 million Jews they murdered. He put 6 million Jews in quotes, by the way, wrote Robinson. There is also a reason those same liberals do not fill the airwaves with programs about the communist and 100 plus million people they murdered throughout the 20th century. Now, this is why some people have, I think, reasonably speculated that Mark Robinson is likely a neo-Nazi, even if he doesn't self-identify as such, or at a minimum, he's a white supremacist. Now, that seems weird because we're talking about a black man, but I mean, you can still espouse white supremacist and anti-black talking points regardless of who you are. And in a 2017 Facebook post, he said he doesn't actually consider himself to be part of the African-American community, and he also made very racist comments about black people in response to a news article that he shared, and he also shared images of the Confederate flag, and in response to a Republican politician's shirt featuring a man holding a Confederate flag while urinating on the NAACP logo, he actually defended it by saying that the NAACP has done a fine job of pissing on itself and its legacy for many years now. Furthermore, Talking Points memo continues, quote, February is Black History Month. I guess the shortest month of the year is all we need to learn about the separate but equal history of a people who have achieved so little, Robinson wrote in 2014. Robinson also took issue with Kwanzaa, a holiday that celebrates African American heritage. Random thought, after Christmas edition, Robinson wrote in early January of 2018, Kwanzaa is Hanukkah on food stamps. So he said some very insensitive and downright racist things about black Americans that his white GOP colleagues are probably thinking but don't want to say because they're afraid that they'd be called racists. And that is very dangerous because what he's doing here is normalizing this sort of rhetoric and telling his white GOP colleagues that their racist beliefs about black people are actually valid. But he doesn't just pick on black Americans, to be fair, because he also called women who got abortions murderers. And of course, he also hates LGBTQ plus people a lot. And I think that saying that he hates LGBTQ plus people really undersells it, because I think that it's not uncharitable to literally describe him as a straight supremacist, given what he said about gay people.
Somebody asked me in the classroom one time, we were talking about, and they said, this fellow was a homosexual, looked at me and said, so you think your wife and you think your heterosexual relationship is superior to my husband and our homosexual relationship? Yes!
I mean, he's pretty clear, right? He is a straight supremacist. Now, in that same anti-gay screed, he also made the point that God has a purpose for literally everything, even something so insignificant like cow shit, for example, because at least cow shit provides nutrients to the land, right? But there's no purpose for homosexuality. What's the purpose there? There is none, right? Hence why straight relationships are better, because they can produce children, although not all straight relationships can. He didn't acknowledge this, but, his point is that there's no point to homosexuality, therefore it is not of the Lord. But rest assured that even though he thinks that gays have no purpose, well, as an elected official, it is his duty to protect your right to exist as a gay person. Now, the problem is that his tolerance ends there, and usually he'll make that comment about them having the right to be gay or trans after saying some terrible shit about them. But he he might think that gay people and trans people are at least allowed to exist, which awesome. We're not to the whole let's kill gay people at this point in time within the Republican Party, at least publicly. But he does think that their existence should be policed heavily, since their existence falls under a different category than freedom and liberty. It's this new third category that he calls pure illness.
You know, there's freedom, and there's liberty, and then there's pure lunacy. And lunacy is turning on the Olympics and seeing a man lifting weights against a woman. Lunacy is turning on the television and seeing a story in the local news about a man wearing a rainbow dress with horns in his head, his face all painted up, dressed up like a woman, sitting reading to children.
So while you might have the freedom to be gay or trans, there are certain elements about sexual and gender minorities that fall under this new category of pure illness, where those things don't have to be protected according to him. And it doesn't have to be protected because it's tantamount to pedophilia, which he describes as one and the same with being gay and trans.
You know, back in the day, we had them kind of folks back in the day. Back when I was a kid, my mama used to tell me about it. She used to tell me, y'all go down to the playground now. If y'all see anybody out there hanging around in a raincoat, come on. And you don't see no pants hanging out in a raincoat, y'all get y'all stuff and come on home, cause that's what we call a pervert. And you don't even get out there.
Right!
Everybody thinks this stuff is new. This ain't new. Somebody somewhere right now on the internet grooming somebody's child to put their hands on it right now. You ain't got no reason to be teaching these children that those kind of concepts unless you got some like the old folks used to say, some idea about putting your hands on.
Yeah, so he just implied that gay and trans people are all child predators. And they've always existed, right? Since he was a kid. His mom was warning them about perverts, but now we just give those same perverts civil rights. It's just all one and the same. But gay and trans people aren't just child predators, according to him. At least when it comes to trans people, he also thinks that they are demonic, literally.
The transgender movement in this country, if there's a movement in this country that is demonic and that is full of the spirit of Antichrist, it is the transgender movement. And this same people going to tell me, you need to believe in global warming. And then they tell me, follow the science.
So LGBTQ plus people are predators, trans people are demonic. Anything else?
There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. And if you don't like it that I called it filth, come see me and I'll explain it to you.
Of course. Why wouldn't he also think that queer people are filth as well? And by the way, it's not the first time that he's referred to the LGBTQ plus community as filth. He's done it on numerous occasions. And it's clear that he hates queer people so much that he is this close to just publicly saying the F slur at this point. Wait, it's not possible. No, he wouldn't, right? Come on. In a 2017 Facebook post, he actually dropped the F slur. He did the thing. He actually did it. Now, he did use the @ symbol to denote the letter A, but I think we all know what he's doing here. He took it all the way. Home run. Touchdown, baby. And I'm laughing because it's so funny how there are people who have just no filter, right? Everything they say is total verbal diarrhea, just stream of consciousness. And usually those people don't enter politics because it's kind of a bad thing to say like every single thought that comes to mind. But he's just like, he's taking it all the way. He's using the F slur on social media. It's so wild to me. And Republicans are like, we want that guy. We want him to be the governor. Now, you might have heard the name Mark Robinson even before he won his election recently, because this is the guy who went viral recently who said that trans people should be banned from using the restrooms of their choice. And if they have to go to the bathroom, then they can just defecate in street corners. And we haven't even scratched the surface. As Democratic strategist Keith Edwards explains, he also thinks that Beyonce is satanic. He says that mass shootings are karma for abortion. He called school shooting victims prostitutes. He thinks that the moon landing was faked. He thinks that lizard people are real. He called 9/11 an inside job. And he thinks American Idol is the sign of a new world order. And if I had to guess, I would assume that he'd find Marjorie Taylor Greene's Jewish space laser conspiracy theory pretty compelling. Now listen, I can go on all day, but the point is, he can win. He just won the Republican Party primary for their gubernatorial race. This man could very well become the governor of a whole ass state. And yes, his ideas are psychotic and they could turn off a lot of people, but still, he is a charismatic politician who's able to command the attention of crowds in the same way that Trump can. So I think we underestimate him at our own peril. He can win. And if he does, we'll all be shocked and outraged and see it as a new low for the Republican Party again. But how long will it take until he's seen as the more reasonable Republican compared to the next lunatic that comes along in 5 or so years? Maybe the next one doesn't just quote Hitler. Maybe they'll praise Hitler directly. Maybe the next one doesn't just support violence, but maybe they literally engaged in violence themselves before getting elected. This race to the bottom is becoming very horrifying and sad, and we're on a very dangerous path as a country.
Like everywhere there's glows, you see them all the time. I mean, it's constant. My children will be like, Mama, glow, 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 glow. I turn on TV, there's glows in the background. Every TV show, news media, why?
Glow, 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 glow. They're everywhere. Glow, 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 glow.